Hello, everybody. My name is Riley Loveland, and I am a project manager with New Buildings Institute. I'm also joined by Amy Cortez at New Buildings Institute, Ida Claire, who is our acting state architect in the state of California, who's DS from the Division of the State Architect, who's facilitated this whole process with us. Marcos Rodriguez is joining us from Bakersfield City Schools. He's been an active participant in this cohort, and we invite you to our webinar called A Roadmap for Getting to Zero Energy and Carbon Over Time in Schools. Here are the learning objectives for today. I won't read them, but I mentioned a minute ago that if you have comments, questions, any of that stuff, go ahead and put it in the chat. Slides will be available, recording will be available. We'll get to you. And just for those of you who may not know New Buildings Institute, we've been around this particular conference quite a few times, so hopefully some of our old friends are on the line. NBI is a national nonprofit, and we work to reduce energy and carbon emissions in both new and existing buildings. We work to research and then define best practices. We partner with building owners, designers, utilities, public agencies to really highlight what we've learned about these zero energy and zero carbon buildings in case studies, workshops, webinars like these ones. It's been real webinar heavy, obviously, in the last 9 months. And then we turn this into codes and policies so that it really transforms the entire market. We've been working with schools for quite some time, so this cohort was developed as a way for us to share the lessons learned, particularly about schools, with other districts in California as well as nationwide. There's 2 of us here at NBI, like I mentioned. I'm Riley. You can see my face here. I will let Amy just say hello and pop in and introduce herself real quick too.
Hi, everyone, and thanks to Carl and Star for having us. We're really excited to talk to all of you a little bit about this idea, which actually came from the conference last year, as Ida reminded us, where we talked about, the opportunity to bring districts together and talk about how school districts can realistically get to zero energy and zero carbon over time. And the response has been great, and so we're excited to be here to talk a little bit more about it. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Amy. That was a great introduction. So there's a couple pieces of this webinar today. I'm going to first talk a little bit about the background, about what getting to zero over time is, what the concept is, and then I'll let our friends at DSA and Bakersfield City Schools talk about their involvement, and then we'll bring it home and explain exactly what the cohort is and who is involved. So, while NBI has this expertise in getting to zero, like I mentioned, we knew that in developing this cohort that we had as much to learn as the participants about how these buildings can be built across different climate zones, how you introduce the concept to stakeholders, and really just how you actually implement a zero energy or zero carbon building. So in 2010, NBI began tracking these zero energy buildings, and at that time, few people believed that it was possible that these buildings could really produce as much energy as it consumed, but we knew it was possible. And because we worked with the people that we had done it, we knew that we needed to disseminate those lessons learned so that we could get more online. So we started tracking these buildings in 2012. We published our first list, and we've updated this list about every other year. In 2019, we published the Zero Energy Schools Watch List. There's a lot of long terms here, a lot of long titles, so they kind of roll off the tongue. But the NBI Getting to Zero list, the big one, had grown to almost 600 buildings, so we decided it would be a good idea to produce a school-specific one, because schools are leading this entire Z&E market. I mean, you can see on this document here, I'm going to point, I apologize. I guess I could use my pointer here. So you'll notice that we separate buildings too, the green and the blue, between zero energy emerging and zero energy verified. Zero energy emerging in the blue are buildings that have not quite yet hit zero net energy. They may be in process, they're working on adding renewables, things like that. Zero energy verified are buildings that have demonstrated that they produce as much energy as they consume over the course of a year. We're approaching about 100 Z&E schools in California, and in this cohort, we'd really like to share all the lessons learned that we have from these early projects and how they broadly across the state, you can see there's a huge distribution here, will help accelerate the adoption of best practices. So we're taking these best practices that we've learned from these schools and disseminating it into our cohort. And we of course know that it's not easy. We are totally here with you on that, and that we have as much to learn as you do, but it's all about collaboration and talking about barriers and a way forward. you can see here too on this that these zero energy buildings are across the nation and in every climate zone in North America. I mean, you see them in Kentucky, you see them in Texas. It's pretty amazing. But in California here, we're really leading. So, you know, why getting to zero is this next evolution in sustainable and high performance buildings. So California, Ida will talk about this a little bit more, but California has some really aggressive policy goals so that we really need to drive this market to get to zero. And it's a pretty easy sell when you look at it this way, that it delivers cost avoidance from the utility bills into the classroom. It creates these comfortable and productive learning environments for student and staff. It's very important that everyone is considered in the process. It can provide these hands-on, future-focused learning opportunities. And of course, really important amidst everything that this world has been going through in the last 6 to 9 months, more resilient communities. And you know, we know that it's an ambitious goal, getting to zero energy and zero carbon over time. Some may feel that it's too aggressive for any particular school district. It seems insurmountable, especially when we know that schools routinely do not spend as much as they should on building upkeep or more topical building HVAC. And this has led to massive deferred maintenance challenges, which are hard to overcome. And of course, we know that with the COVID angle here, serious budget constraints in the current climate, it's not going to get any easier. But the concept of getting to zero over time and leveraging every opportunity to improve performance can save both upfront and long-term costs. So this concept of getting to zero over time was introduced to us by our good friends at the Rocky Mountain Institute. And it really takes a long-term strategic approach to energy management so that you are setting, and it leverages every opportunity to continually improve your energy and carbon performance. It sets measurable goals for a portfolio and individual projects by using policies or guidance documents to achieve them. And of course, we know that it's incredibly important to dovetail the strategic energy plan with the focus on benefits to the learning environment, because we know that schools are not just about operating the buildings, they are about educating students. Educating students. If we were in person, we might make you say that out loud. This may seem obvious, but it means that any work that is being done to reduce emissions or save energy has to be integrated with overall improvements to the learning environment. So quickly, I know I have done this at least 4 times already in the last 5 minutes. You'll hear us reference zero net energy, net zero carbon, all of these things kind of interchangeably. And there's a lot of terms here in this realm. And the important part is that generally most of these are rooted in efficiency first, and the rest of the energy is supplemented by carbon-free renewables. Energy use intensity, just some more common terminology so we can kind of root in this and we can say some of these terms later on, is that energy use intensity, as you'll see here, is a common metric to set energy targets for these buildings. This is expressed in kilobtu per square foot over a year. It also dives one step deeper to include the site energy, which is the energy consumed on site, and then the source energy. I assume you guys can see my mouse here, but I'm circling site and source. Excellent, nodding, great, excellent. And source energy really takes into account energy lost in extraction, transmission lines. You can see this really complicated diagram here. And the site to source factor depends on your location, not vacation. Z&E can be measured at the building level, at the campus level, or even at a portfolio level. And one building's production, let's say in a portfolio, for example, might help offset the entire portfolio. And then the next iteration here, I've mentioned it also, is zero net carbon that takes into account the carbon emissions from the building. And a zero net carbon building, much like a Z&E building, is highly efficient, produces on-site or procures that carbon-free renewable energy in an amount that is sufficient to offset the annual carbon emissions associated with operations. That sounds like a lot, but I promise it's not as tricky as it sounds. Because generally this means that this building has no combustion on site, which is right in line with where the California policy is headed. And over time, electricity will become more carbon friendly as more renewables come online. But natural gas will always have carbon emissions. And natural gas is used in most urban and suburban areas across the United States. Fuel oil, just for a national perspective, is on the East Coast, the Northeast. Electric resistance heat is common in the South and the Northwest. And in school buildings, gas is used in heating, hot water heating, kitchen, and in many other places. So there's a lot of opportunity for getting the gas out of the building and going carbon free. Oh, that's right. There's some cute little photos here. This list here documents the step-by-step process for getting to zero. The whole point of this cohort is to really help the school districts lay out this step-by-step, month by month, so that in the end, they create the framework to do all of these steps in their district over time and get to that zero carbon goal. You know, during each meeting of the cohort, our presenters dive a little deeper into each of these topics, and I'll talk about actually what the cohort looks like eventually, but I did want you all to see what the steps to success look like for getting to zero. So prior to kicking off the cohort, we did interviews with many of the districts to get an understanding of where they were in the process on that slide I just showed, and what kind of construction is happening in their district and what their plans are. And from these discussions, we know that there's not a lot of new construction going on. There's quite a bit of retrofits happening, and system replacements, equipment replacements, and things like that. So dealing with that existing building portfolio is really the crux of this entire cohort. And this concept and the process of getting to zero over time takes into account all of the building life cycle events and construction types, and that makes the process more manageable and overall cost effective if you were using every opportunity in the building life cycle to keep driving down your energy use and keep reducing carbon emissions. All right, so with that, Ida, I'm going to pass this off to you. You can just tell me next slide. Ida, you are muted.
Just noticed that. I got the message. Thank you, Riley. I really appreciate it. So at DSA, we are part of the Department of General Services. And as such, we have our values that are the goals of the department, and we also seek to fulfill the objectives of Governor Newsom. So at DGS, we are collaborative and consultative. We aim to be sustainable and we aim to be effective. Keeping in mind these goals that we have, that are our values, we always seek to see how we can do better in servicing our clients. And at DSA, our clients are public schools. And of course, sustainability is a major objective of previous Governor Brown and now Governor Newsom. And so I was just telling Riley that it's kind of been full circle. Last year at the Getting to Zero Summit and at the Green School Summit is where I became inspired to reach out with Riley and Amy and say, hey, how can we do this? You have the information, I can tap you into the schools. What can we do? And so we came up with this cohort, and it's been very exciting. Next slide, Riley, please. So first of all, one of our goals into increasing sustainability schools is to develop our new sustainability team. And if Tav and Paul can show their video, if they have it, they can wave in, but they are on this call and ready to answer your questions at the end if you have any specific questions, as am I. But I am Ida Claire. I am the principal architect for sustainability at DSA headquarters, and I'm also the acting state architect. I am joined on the sustainability team with Tav Commons, a senior mechanical engineer who came to us directly from the Energy Commission. And then of course, Paul Johnson, who's our senior electrical engineer, and he had done really some work for a very advanced firm out in private practice with schools and very serious about sustainability. So I am honored to have these two gentlemen on our team, and they have been doing great work since they've joined us earlier this year. Next slide, please. So the goals that the Governor Brown had set for us are on this page. He set a goal of 1 million zero emission vehicles by 2020. DSA responded by requiring electric vehicle infrastructure on school campuses for new construction. In B3015, he set the interim target of greenhouse gas emissions. And so we have been working towards that. And this cohort is aiming to achieve part of those executive orders, as well as B5518, which is achieve statewide carbon neutrality by 2045. That's why we have both a get to net zero energy and net zero carbon goal with this cohort. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we have Governor Newsom's executive order, which requires every aspect of state government to redouble its efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And our goal with this cohort is to increase school facility energy efficiency, reduce greenhouse gas emissions with each new construction and modernization, and leading to a zero net energy and zero net carbon future for school buildings. We understand that as school districts and facility personnel, you need assistance with this. And so we are trying very hard to bring you the resources to you so you don't have to go find them yourself. And so this cohort that we came up with earlier this year, I was very excited for having our school districts participate, and we really had some very good responses. And so next slide, please, Riley. It was part of our overall sustainability education and outreach effort. So you can see that the small school, it's on here, it started out as a small school district cohort, but now it's actually just a school district cohort because we have them of all sizes. I actually didn't correct that. But part of the education and outreach that we've performed this year is Tav and Paul, the engineers. They provided sustainability training for the modular and relocatable building manufacturers. Modular and relocatable buildings make up about 30% of the school buildings in California. And so trying to achieve that zero net energy and zero carbon goal for those buildings every time with code advancements in the code is very important. And so supporting them in the training and ensuring that those buildings are designed to meet the energy code requirements is very important. We're also working with Y Plan, which is a youth-driven climate equity group out of Berkeley, who is going around the state. They have 2 programs right now, one in Sacramento and I believe one in Southern California, where they're working with students in high schools and trying to encourage them and teach them how to drive equity policy through their local government. And so as DSA, we assist and answer questions with them and actually provide critique of their programs when they do their presentations. And then we are working on with the California Energy Commission on school-specific measures for the 2022 Energy Code. Tav and Paul have been working with them. They have proposed electrification for new non-residential construction, which includes schools. So if that all goes well and it gets passed next year with the new code, in January 1st, 2023, new construction will be required to have electrification for their systems. And then of course, or BL Electric. And then we are working with our project inspectors who go to schools and actually work through the construction process on training them on the installation and acceptance testing compliance that's required as part of the Energy Code. And earlier this year, we also updated the California Collaborative for High Performance Schools criteria. Next slide, please. All right, so our goals for this cohort is to establish a resource library for schools, provide peer-to-peer communication so that those who are of equivalent size can meet others who are searching and achieving the same objectives. Showcase California School Net Zero projects. That's going to be on our website soon. And so maybe one of your schools, when it gets to net zero, can be showcased on the DSA website. And then, of course, we are looking to proceed with additional cohorts. This is K-12 schools right now. We're looking to also performing a cohort for community colleges in the future. Next slide, please. All right, so I had talked to you a little bit about Energy Code and electrification. The Energy Commission is in pre-rulemaking right now, and they are actually just about to send out the notice of action, which means then it starts the 45-day comment period where you can actually comment on the proposals. So if you are interested in participating in the Energy Code rulemaking process, which is very informative, it does require public participation. There's the link, and you can sign up directly with the Energy Commission to receive that information. Next slide, please. And then, of course, this is just our DSA website. You're going to go, if you look, and you're going to see the resources tab, and you're going to look for sustainability plan review. And these are additional sources that we have. Also, I've told you that we will have also a new web page that will have additional resources and showcase zero net energy schools and the information on the cohort. That's coming soon. Next slide, please. And then we are in the middle of Cal Green Code. Actually, we're at the start of Cal Green Code development for the 2022 code. So if you are interested in signing up and participating in sustainability measures that we develop through Cal Green, which is Title 24, Part 11, we encourage you to subscribe to our website, which is on the front page all the way down at the bottom, and hit subscribe, and you can get information on our Cal Green Code development when we send out notifications on the public process so that you can engage and comment. Next slide, Riley. I think I'm done. So I'm going to pass this over to Marcos. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Next slide, please. I titled my presentation, The Journey to Zero Net Energy and Carbon, because truly for our district, it is a journey. And we've been on the road for a little bit and we've stopped along the way. Sometimes we've gone a little backwards, but we're moving forward again. So with that, again, I am the Director of Facilities for Bakersfield City School District. Next slide, please. The importance of the cohort for me, of course, net zero and energy and carbon reduction strategies are something that we're diligently working on. The expertise that I'm gaining from this cohort is invaluable. Knowing the DSA process, and I'm glad to hear that Ida and the folks at DSA are working to get school districts on board. And in doing that, give guidance, because there's still a lot of questions out there on how this will all work. One of the other things that I found a benefit for this being in this cohort is networking with other school districts throughout the state, because why recreate the wheel when somebody's actually done something and had success with it? The other thing is advocacy organizations. So both Amy and Riley belong with the New Buildings Institute. I applaud you guys for your efforts in moving this energy policy forward. And on a couple different occasions, we had one yesterday. We had a meeting with Paul Tortolino with the National Renewable Energy Lab, NREL. And back in July, I believe we had a meeting with Teresa Pistocchini, I believe, from UC Davis at the Western Energy Cooling Center, and Ranji Chan with Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories, talk about air quality and COVID and how to deal with COVID in our mechanical systems. So there's a lot of technical insight that you can gain from this, but a lot of just plain simple information that hopefully can help you get you going on your journey and how that works and enjoy your time along the way. So one thing I want to talk about Bakersfield City School District is we're located in Kern County here in the state, and we are home to the #1 oil industry in California. We are #2 for agriculture, productive in agriculture. And I know recent legislative endeavors by the governor's office we have to change what we're doing. And so in doing that, we're trying to address that as we go along. And so it's really important that for us, what we do, that we can sustain it. And doing that, that's going to come through trial and error and understanding, and again, seeing what other people have done where that's been successful. Next slide, please. So about our district. Our district is nearing, it's there at 29,000, but pre-COVID, we were actually about 30 students short 31,000 students. So we have had a slight decline this fall. We are the largest independent K-8 district in the state of California with 44 school sites. We have about 2.7 million square feet of buildings and about 500 acres of land. Some of our school sites are well over the 60 years of age time frame, and we actually have 6 sites at 100 years old or above. Actually, the oldest campus we have is about 106 years old, and we just have a brand new campus that we finished constructing for the start of the school year in August. And then our mechanical systems are at the end of their life cycle, and I'll be talking about various things in life cycle and in different arenas. So next slide, please. So I guess we could also be called Modular City, if you would, because we have a lot of modular classroom buildings. We have a total, I believe it's 1,687 classrooms throughout our district, and a good percentage of them are modular. If you look at the picture on the top, these buildings are 75 years or older. These are actually World War II bachelor's enlisted quarters that the government must have given after the war was over, that we still have in our district. We still have 67 of these buildings in our district. When I first came to the district about 6 years ago, they were finalizing a modernization project, and that was the last time we modernized these old buildings. And a decision was made at that time that if we could spend $50 to $60 more per square foot, we could get a more modern, energy efficient building that'll be here for another 50 plus years, right? So anyway, that was done, and over time we have actually moved these buildings out. And for this campus that's shown here, we're actually going to do a complete modernization that's underway at this time with 27 brand new classrooms. So next slide, please. So back in 2015, we did a facilities master plan assessment of our district. And at that time, the valuation was about $835 million. With the cost escalation that's occurred since 2015, we're probably well over $1 billion. We actually had a pretty high voter approval rate at 74%, which was great. But our valuation for the bond was $110 million. And so for our district here in Bakersfield, we are one of 7 elementary school districts, and there's 1 high school district. We are the original elementary school district of Bakersfield, founded in 1872, so we've been here a long time. And with that, the average price per square foot of a home in our district is $88 and change, so it's not much, but that's okay. We work with it as best we can. And as well, we've been designated as a disadvantaged community through the CalifDGS Screening 3.0, and our free and reduced lunch programming is at 89%. So again, even though we have limited financial resources, we do with what we have, and we try to do it the best we can. Next slide, please. Actually, Riley, can you back up one slide? Okay. And below is actually a recent modernization project that we finished 2 years ago. And the building to your left with the metal, architectural metal, is actually a modular office building for a school site. And the classrooms that you see there in front of you in the middle are actually permanent modular constructed classrooms. And the last picture to the right actually shows the solar tube technology, which is a daylighting piece of equipment. And lo and behold, when this project was done, we also did solar at this campus, but we actually rated the EUI, the energy use intensity for this campus, at right at 21, which is pretty good for us. And so we were ecstatic that dropped that much. But what we did with this campus is we replaced 9 of those World War II classroom buildings that we talked about earlier, and came in with a series of about 17 brand new classroom, permanent modular built classrooms. Next slide, please. So we are very adamant believers of energy management. And with that, we have a third-party energy partner, Synergistic, and they help us with our energy management. We have 2 individuals based in our district, and we are adamant about saving energy with respect to not only power, but water, natural gas, and so on. We started the program with them back in October of 2016. And in that process, we've actually, go off this chart here, we talk about cumulative cost avoidance. That's money that we didn't have to spend on power. Building audits, that's where individuals actually go to the site. At least they conduct 25 audits per week. 19 of those audits have to be in person, and they can be all hours of the day. So when either class is in session, or it can be on the weekend at 3 in the morning, they will conduct audits and then also they will do online audits with software as well. And over this same period of time, we've had a 17% drop in energy use as well, and then water savings. And then the chart below here just talks about where we use the most of our water. So domestic water uses such as restrooms is the most prevalent, but irrigation plays a large part of that. And then water for other uses, which could be, we do on-site cooking for for all 44 school sites, and we have 18 school gardens in our district. Next slide, please. So this chart here shows our energy profile from October of 16 through now, and in this journey. So this actually denotes our practices here. And keep in mind that with energy management, sometimes people expect that you're going to see this dramatic cost drop in your bill. But if you're adding buildings all the time and your bill doesn't change, that doesn't mean that it's not working, but you're actually becoming more efficient with your energy management practices and reminding people, turn off your lights, undo your plug load, that kind of thing during vacations or long periods of shutdowns or the weekend and that kind of thing. It all adds up. Next slide, please. So here we show data here for the different years that we've been in the program, and I apologize, the part of the 2019 data on the left kind of dropped off. But anyway, that just kind of shows us how we've reduced our energy. And if you can see the pie chart right next to it, that's just the percentage of where we spend some of our general fund dollars to pay for the various utilities in our district. So, and then again, cost avoidance, the graph to the right shows our profile last year and then through this year in the period of COVID through, I believe, through March. So actually, we've actually seen an increase and so you can look at the notes below. And so after we've gone through this, well, we're still in the COVID scenario, but we've seen a 66% increase in avoidance. And so we've actually, even though students and staff were not on our campuses for these last few months, we still were diligently going through and doing our energy management exercises accordingly. Next slide, please. So initiatives of what we've done in our district. Currently, we are constructing 7 remaining sites, hopefully to be constructed by January, of solar, and then 4 more sites next summer for 21, for a total of 26 sites. We will have 8 megawatts of power. We were recently awarded through the California Energy Commission through the SCHIP program, Self-Generation Incentive Plan, to do 6 sites as a pilot, if you will. And that system will have 3 megawatts of capacity. The microgrid solution for 3 district sites, it's a power triangle concept. So in this day and age of power shutdowns, we had an incident at one of our main administrative offices last year where we lost power, and that was not a good thing, but we got through it anyway. And so in this day and age of microgrid systems, we're hoping to do something along that line. And of course, this would be inclusive with the use of power backup generators. One of the sites already has a diesel one, but we're thinking for the 2 remaining sites, we could actually have a compressed natural gas base fuel generator system to work as what they call a variable rate frequency generator or control mechanism. That way, that would work on top of our solar to keep the complete facility up and running. And again, we talked about the solar tubes. We've installed over 1,000 solar tubes in our district thus far. Next slide, please. So Prop 39, we actually completed our construction activities last year. And in essence, we changed out a lot of units across our district. And it was a love of labor, but we got through it. And I'm glad to say that now we have equipment that's going to be with us for a while. And then we also did an energy service contract with a company to do that on a different project outside of Prop 39. And it went pretty well. And so, the only thing I would add to that is that, make sure for school district, know what you want, know what equipment's going to work and what's going to be situated in the environments that these fixtures may be in, and what standards or protocols that you have as well. Cato Middle School, Fletcher Elementary School, that was an education complex, the first one in our district. And we actually designed it to the Collaborative for High Performance Schools requirements. And this school was very unique in our district, and it had a lot of firsts. So this school had a variable rate frequency mechanical system. So it actually ramps up and powers down accordingly on the demand or energy use at that time. It had a cool roof mechanism on it throughout the campus. This was the first campus where we did the solar tube project for all classrooms. Again, we had an irrigation pump, that's a VRF pump, same thing, to control the amount of energy used during that time. Low flow systems, not only for the interior plumbing fixtures, but also for irrigation systems outside. And then lastly, we are a participant in the US EPA's Energy Star Portfolio program. And so we'd like to benchmark what we've done and see how we compare with other like-sized districts across the United States. And just a note on these trees, you're seeing pictures of trees here, and we'll get, you'll see why we were adamant about tree pictures. So next slide, please. So our district recently conducted a tree inventory across our district, and we came out at about 2,700 trees. And to our surprise in this process, there's a lot of things that went into this. And luckily, we were able to do a geographic information survey where we actually digitally marked where every tree was on our respective campuses. We actually have a greenhouse calculation of what we take from our local district environment. This is not all of Kern County, but for our district where our trees are located, we actually are able to report that we've removed over 700 pounds of greenhouse gases and over 25 tons of, give me a second here. 25 tons of other emissions as well. So with that being said, this urban forest management plan that we're working on is actually pretty exciting for us. And what has happened is that this is going to help us with our tree programming. And during the drought, within the last, say, 6 years that we went through the drought, we lost about 250 trees across our district. We had to scale back on watering and application of water as needed. And so this kind of was the inspiration to get our trees under control. Again, we talk about, we updated our irrigation systems across the district within the last 3 years. So everything is web enabled now and ET scheduled. We were a recipient of the 2020 California Green Ribbon Schools Award Program through the CDE at one of our school sites. We partnered with one of our local farming entities, Grimway Farms, and we actually have a Grimway edible garden in our district, and also a demonstration kitchen to show kids, teach them not only wellness, but how things grow. Next slide, please. So just this year, we recently installed trash compactors in our district, and to our surprise, we've got pretty positive results. At these sites, we've had up to as high as 80% reduction in the cost of our garbage, and that was due mainly to garbage trucks not having to come every day. And with that, we're saving not only on the emissions that those garbage trucks would generate, but also on the actual operation of our trash disposal within the district in conjunction with recycling programs that we do. Transition to Tier 4 diesel equipment. So we're getting rid of our old smokies, if you will, in the fleet. And these could be lawnmowers, wide area mowers, zero-turn mowers, tractors, bobcats, as best we can. And we're investigating renewable diesel and biodiesel for our district. We're actually having there's a refinery being constructed in Bakersfield right now that's going to start manufacturing this. And typically renewable diesel comes from a biomass or wood source, if you will, and or plants. So it'll be interesting to see how that will work. And then at this time, we're conducting a strategic plan for a transition to possibly an electric vehicle yellow fleet. We have about 220 routes in a given day when everybody was coming to school here. And we have about 100 buses that are still diesel. So this could be a major advantage for the district if we transition that. And currently, we're also looking at our white fleet vehicles, which are maintenance trucks and what have you. And it's really exciting. And we've actually done some compressed natural gas pickups and all electric John Deere Gators for those that are familiar with those vehicles, which are utility vehicles, and hybrid cars as well. Next slide, please. So again, our goals are listed here, and it's really important that, you know, it's great that there's guidelines or goals set by the state, but, you know, we're going to do the best that we can, and maybe there will be a technology from now to 10 years from now that will change everything and, you know, speed it up even more. Who knows, right? But at the same time, I think it's important that, you know, have a plan, you know, measure what you have, see what works, see what doesn't work, talk to people. And, you know, especially being in this cohort, this allows you to do that. So with that, and then lastly, we are working on curriculum for all the different things that we are doing with our students to actually teach about solar systems and batteries once we get them, electric vehicles and water usage, because it's all pertinent. So with that, I'm done. And I guess I can use this fund. And this is what we're doing on the streets of Bakersfield, the old Buck Owens classic. So anyway, thank you.
That was wonderful. Marcos, there's a real specific question for you. Devin says, that is a massive tree that you moved. Is that a native tree?
That was the pistachio chinense tree. That was equivalent to a 125-gallon size tree. That was the one via crane. I believe that the one that was done with the tree spade was actually another pistachio chinense. That's our #1 tree in our district, by the way. We have over 375 of them. And that was about a 74-gallon equivalent tree.
I agree. That is a massive tree. That was a very impressive photo. For everyone, this is Marcos' email. If you'd like to contact him, I just want to say thank you so much before I dive into the kind of meat of the actual panel, what the cohort looks like, I just want to say that, thank you, Ida, I was looking through the list of participants, I should say, and I'm seeing a lot of people that we'd see in person, and it's just so nice to think about how we met. Well, we talked to Ida at this event last year, and I see some of our cohort members online, and just wanted to say hello and thank you for being here. I wish we were in person, but this cohort really came about because of the kind of collaboration that we see at this conference and we see at other conferences, and in getting to talk to Marcos and other school districts, we really think that, some of this stuff that Marcos is presenting looks like, wow, he's got it all figured out, but we know that every school district has something or many things that they're up against. Remember Marcos said that Bakersfield has really tough air quality and they're dealing with big oil. So the whole point of this cohort is to meet every district where they are, understand what they need, and move forward towards those goals he just presented. So when we had people apply through the DSA website for the cohort, they submitted an application, and then we interviewed some of them to get a holistic understanding of what their needs were. I talked to Marcos. He told me the story about the trees, and I was immediately just like, oh, I have to, tell this story far and wide. But really, we wanted to make sure that every school district, I'll show you some of the size of these school districts in a minute, but that this content, although it's templatized and that there is, lots of different information being thrown around, that it's still tailored and usable for every school district of every size and every location. So in having these interviews, we were really able to understand how we could meet people where they were and what their successes were and what their barriers had been, so that we were able to match people up and match needs up with each other. And when we said we wanted to meet them where they are, of course, where they are in the process. I showed you those process slides earlier, but also like literally where they were at their desk at home. And this is pre-COVID too. So remember, this was last year in person. Amy and I run in-person workshops for the California investor-owned utilities, and we do them nationwide as well. And we realized that really not everyone can come to a training location. So we wanted to go online to make it easy for everyone to join. And this was pre-COVID, so COVID really worked in our favor in this case. We were real smart on the pre-planning, but that is a really successful model. I think that going forward too, it would probably stay online just because of the accessibility, and it really helps bring everyone together so that we can develop this success in D&E and continue to build on those successes and have everyone talk to each other to amplify more projects to this level. And that way, that's how we achieve those goals that Ida laid out earlier. And then your success in the cohort then builds the market for success in other areas in the state. And then it just becomes a giant zero carbon world. That's the goal here. But additionally, within the cohort, I mentioned we meet you where you are. We build on your successes. We help you work through anything that you are struggling with, working collaboratively to get ahead, share best practices, and then discuss and develop those solutions. Come on, slides. There we go. So the cohort meets monthly. We meet on the third Wednesday of each month. We spend the first hour on a specific topic, and then we have a 30-minute office hours after where we continue the conversation. Oftentimes, it just turns into back and forth based on the topic, which is really great. Some days it feels like we could keep talking for 3 hours instead of 30 minutes. And then we do record them because, we realize that time is precious, especially in the midst of a pandemic and climate issues and wildfires and everything going on. So for those that are unable to attend, they do view the recordings. We have a central location for them so people can review the materials on their own time. And we found that people do, which is really, really great, that people are able to watch them and reach out to us with any questions. And then during each meeting, we have a specific topic presenter from around California or the US. Marcos mentioned Paul Torslini from NREL joined us quite literally yesterday, was our October meeting, we've had people from all over the state of California. We had someone from Boulder Valley join us, Boulder Valley School District. So everyone has such valuable information. And as Marco said, we do not want to reinvent the wheel. And then each month they fill out a section of their actual roadmap template. And then we share documents, ideas. You know, one of the cohort members came to us and said, hey, we would really like a template resolution so that we can take a board or a resolution template to our board to say that we are working in this getting to zero cohort and our goal is to get to zero, you know, please buy in. So it's stuff like that. It's very collaborative. You tell us what they tell us what they need, and then we're able to help develop that so that it's easier and you can move forward at a faster pace. You know, we do also provide some more one-on-one tailored support for those in need. You know, I have a couple of school districts that I have a monthly call with where we work through the template or we work through anything else that is kind of that they're running into. We've helped people make the business case. We're working with one district to set up their benchmarking account. I mean, we just provide whatever you need. Ideally, you know, the template will provide you the support that you need, but we realize that every school district is unique and that you may need something specific. So everyone is probably wondering what this roadmap actually looks like. It sounds a little nebulous. What is this document? So this roadmap follows that process that I outlined. It feels like hours ago, but was only a half hour ago. Time is very strange in COVID land. But this provides a template for school districts to fill in their individual goals, to fill in data from their specific school district. So it really helps them understand, or really helps them pull all of the information that may have been moving around, or even information that they've needed to develop to help set the specific policies or standards to achieve those projects to get to zero over time. The sections of the roadmap, this is just kind of a general look at what the sections look like. It aligns with that process I mentioned in the beginning. It includes stakeholder engagement. I did see that question earlier, by the way, about engaging students. I will get to that, speaking of stakeholder engagement. Goal setting, which is setting that EUI target. Marcos mentioned an EUI, which is that KBTU per square foot per year of 23. We have seen that you can hit an EUI of 25 in every climate zone in the United States. So California can definitely strive to be a little more aggressive at maybe 20. Go for it. Benchmarking and data, policies and contracts and guidance documents, selecting your project team and how you go about the integrated design process, and then actually implementing and constructing to zero, and then tracking, engaging occupants, and reporting your progress so that next time you can just keep adding on and keep iterating on your process. So for example, I say last month, I actually mean September because we did have one yesterday, but in last month's meeting in September, we discussed setting our energy goals. So the districts were provided this template right here to fill out to find out their baseline energy use intensity. And then we set individual building and portfolio wide goals. So districts really took stock of what goals and policies and processes were already in place to get to zero, and so that their new goal or their updated goals are additive. So, you know, no need to recreate the wheel or redo work that's already done. These goals, again, are really set to be really specific as to whether they impact the portfolio or a particular building, and they need to be actionable and measurable. I had mentioned that earlier in the getting to zero over time process. You know, the goal that these districts are trying to achieve, I want to be very clear, is zero net carbon. So zero energy is part of that process, but what these districts are striving towards is zero net carbon as set by the state of California policies. So this means that these buildings, again, are energy efficient and energy is supplied by carbon-free renewables. Let's see, what's my next slide? There we go. So let's talk about who signs on every month. I believe there's roughly 1,000 school districts in California, and we have 58 school districts represented. We actually had over 60 apply, and then we've had a few, you know, with COVID and various other things have to leave, but we anticipate they will come back. They have all expressed interest in the next round. So we have these 58 that have remained signed on, and of course we recognize district schedules are tricky, so not all are on every call, but every call is recorded, as I mentioned. We're repping 29 counties across the entire state of California, which is pretty cool. And these districts are all different sizes. So you can see on the right side here, the different size districts, and this is split into the 4 DSA regions, the Bay Area, NorCal, or Central Coast, California, Sacramento, Los Angeles, and then the San Diego, SoCal area. So we've got LA Unified down here in the big red, and then we have lots of other districts. We have one district that is 52 students. So it's quite the range, north, south, east, west, and by size. And these graphs represent how many of the students are in each of the counties represented, which is kind of an interesting way to look at it. And then this is the map of the DSA regions by county for reference. So again, we are really repping all different types of school districts here, and it's very tricky to tailor something for districts of all shapes and sizes and locations and climate zones. So when we do the template each month and send out the template for them to fill out, we also have them fill out a survey so that we're iteratively asking what they need and what needs to happen in each school district for them to be successful in this cohort. I'm gonna see if Amy has anything else to add before I dive into the what's next and we ask questions. Oh, for some reason, Amy, you're unmuted, but you're also muted. Uh-oh. We can't hear you, no. Put it in the chat and I'll talk for you. Okay, we'll keep going. Technology, man, it worked earlier. So what's next? Ida mentioned we'd really like to keep doing this. There are a lot of school districts. There's been a lot of interest in the community college. Where else? What else? If you're interested in getting involved and this sounds like something that, you know, is right up your alley or you need support in any way, please reach out to us. I forget if I have my email on here, but we will make sure that you have that. And really, I think that's it from me. I was just trying to see if I have any other little comments I wrote. There are some resources in these slides. I'm not going to touch on them because I just saw a lot of comments come in. Okay, let's see. Let's start from the top. Are there any of your programs, including educating students about zero energy and the value to air quality of sustainability? So this specific cohort does have, we actually talked yesterday about, specifically about students. We talked about the different ways that you can utilize your building in this process to educate students doing energy audits, taking around a light meter, for example, and air quality, of course, is a hot topic with COVID. There are resources for that, a lot of them out there. I know that the Air Resources Board in California does have resources too. So Anthony, if you want to follow up, we can get you some of those resources. Ida or Marcos, do you have anything to add to that one?
Nope.
Let's see.
Not at this time.
Marcos, I think this is for you. Was there someone at the district office who initiated the process for greening the district, or was it a teacher or teachers?
Well, it's actually been a culmination of everybody in the district. Different people have done different things. So like, for example, the Green Ribbon program that we were acknowledged for this year, that was done by the local elementary school district there that has the garden. But they called us in to work with them to put in an application for that. There's a lot of information that has to be compiled. And so we worked closely with them to get all the data that we had and what other initiatives we were doing in the district. But across the board, actually, our community here as a whole really push, for air quality, because we know we have an issue here. And I think that it's everybody's concern. So the concerns can come from a teacher, they can come from an administrator, or from our department as well, and students, most importantly.
Great. I see that you answered that question in the chat too. Sorry, I'm just catching up. Marcos, does your school district use a dashboard system for tracking energy and sustainability efforts?
Yes, we actually do. And so the energy management software that we use to track our usage, besides the US EPA portfolio, Energy Star Portfolio Manager, we use a software called Energy Cap, and that's where we actually log all our data. And actually in Energy Cap, it automatically transfers the data into our portfolio management account, and it makes it pretty seamless, but that's kind of what we use.
Great. There was a request to post your email, so I've just left it up there on the screen for anybody. I see a couple people are interested in joining, which is awesome. Why don't you email us? I will put my email here in the chat. And there is no cost. This is entirely a free effort. I mean, this is a collaborative effort to get schools to zero. So there's no cost. Let us know. I see there's some interested districts, which is awesome. Amy had said cohort, this is a great point, thank you. Cohort members represent a variety of roles within the district. We've got energy managers, facility managers, sustainability team, we've got business officials, we've got superintendents, we got one who's a superintendent and a principal. So we really have the full gamut of people represented on this cohort. We have a board member. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Okay, I'm going back in time. Oh, Devin would like to voice a question. Can we do that?
Can you all hear me?
We can. Hello.
Hey, I'm Devin Jackson, and I'm a middle school science teacher, and my district is Mount Diablo Unified School District up in Contra Costa County of the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And this is so awesome that Marcos, thank you, and Riley, thank you for what you've done with mentioning about encouraging districts and schools to get Green Ribbon School certified, and also all the work that you've done with greening schools. I have been trying for several years, at least 3 or 4, to get my district to be in the least bit green. My school that I work at, we got Green Ribbon School certified. We're bronze level, but the district is just going backwards. They do have solar panels, but they think that that's it. That's all they need to do. So my question is a little bit more than what I said in the chat, but I'm eager to work with anybody who is willing to help me break into the bureaucracy of my district to encourage them to be environmentally aware. So that's a loaded question, but is there any advice?
Yes. I mean, Marcos, you've probably dealt with this quite a bit. A bare bones suggestion is that we do have a stakeholder messaging guide that you can use to pull out some of the information that is a little bit more palatable to people who may not be as, let's say, may not be drinking the green Kool-Aid. But, I would say too, it is hard. I absolutely recognize that. And there may be some conversation that you and I can have offline to just kind of talk through some talking points that would be useful and tailored to your district, but I'll also let Marcos see if he's got any advice.
Thank you very much, Riley. I'd love to talk offline too.
Yeah. So Devin, it's a process, right? And so working with constituents within your district, whether the board or your student population, staff, or the general community, it takes work. And for our district, we've been fortunate that people have been receptive to it. Now, granted that not everything has always gone perfect, but we can agree to disagree sometimes. And in doing that, I would just say, keep plugging away. If you can grab it, talk to a board member or community advocates or the kids, because really the kids are your biggest advocate, and they are the ones that are most impressionable. And from our own experience, that drives a lot what we do in our district, because kids are pretty bright and they see things that other districts may be doing, or they find out, and why aren't we doing this here? And so it's really important that you have that communication with your kids, and they can be your biggest advocates, and they can show up to a board meeting with all their signs and t-shirts and say, this is what we want right now. And it's pretty hard for a board to maybe disregard that, and like I said, do it in a respectful way, but at the same time, I think it's important that take consideration of that, because like I said, and if there's community programs that can work with you to push your cause. So for example, with our tree programming, we actually have we have relationships with the National Arbor Day Foundation, with the West Coast chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture, with our Kern County Tree Foundation here. So we have other people that work in this arena or this field of specialty or proponents of it, and we bring that to the table, and those relationships and what they bring. So if you have groups within your local area there that could advocate for you, to bring them on board, and again, at the same time, it's like that saying goes, right? Be careful what you ask for, because you got to be able to sustain it as well. And that's one thing that we've done. Part of the tree programming we're doing is, you saw it on the slide, is we are actually going to plant over 500 trees within our district, hopefully within the next couple of years. In doing so, there's a financial, I've always said the easiest part is to plant the tree and put it in the ground. The real kicker is to actually maintain it over time.
That's right. That's right.
And so with doing that, you got to be careful. And now I know where that 25-ton number that I could not grasp earlier in the presentation, that was our carbon sequestration number.
Okay.
And so sorry for the snafu there. But anyway, but I think it's really important that, you know, you can have people that will advocate for you. And then we do have a communications department in our district. And, you know, I shared this programming that we're doing within our department with the district, and we broadcast to our local community members, because you got to tell your story, because nobody's going to tell your story. I mean, at least that's been my experience. And like I said, recognition is one thing, but getting your message out there, people need to hear it and what's important to you in your district.
Thank you so much, Marcos, for that information. I did see in the chat that I think Sylvia added a letter to administrators. And I was just wondering, Marcos, is it advisable in a district to go directly to the superintendent, or, and these are all questions I could ask you later on too via email, but is it good to go to the district superintendent or work my way up?
I think, like I said, I would start, you know, possibly with going to, you know, the chain of command is probably a good rule to follow here. And I think if you, like I said, if you can start with your student population and see what people are doing, and bring, you know, advocates from outside the district as well, and kind of have a sit down discussion and see what the plans are, what the intent is. And like I said, because I think, you know, from my own personal experience is that, you know, start with small steps and then learn from that, and then, you know, build that foundation and move from there.
Thank you so much, Marcos. That's the end of my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Devin, I just wanted to let you know that you should subscribe to our website and be aware of what's coming. Interestingly enough, we're always looking for those sustainability champions, but being informed as to what the state of California will require, I think fuels also the information that you need to give the impetus on that change. Because once the codes actually start addressing full electrification, or they start addressing other measures, like in our most recent rulemaking, we had done requirements for shade trees. The more they're aware of what's coming when they actually do improve their facilities and what's required to be done by code. Obviously, we would always love for you to go even farther, but to have that information and say, look, this is coming. And so it's time for us to be informed and prepare for it. And this is what we need to do to prepare. And I think it's very important that you be that sustainability champion along with your students and your faculty and their parents, to create that voice and say, change is coming. You can't just move at a snail's pace. You need to move, and because, or else you're gonna feel the effects of it when it's required, and you're gonna be lost. And so it's very important to understand what's coming. And if you subscribe to the DSA website, we'll keep you informed as to the regulatory requirements that are happening, but you will also that's where you can get information when we do another cohort to see how you can join and provide all that information. We'll have our sustainability page, and you can entice those whose mind you're trying to change to perhaps view this. We're hoping to get this presentation on our website so that it lives on and actually becomes a catalyst for people to get that information and join in future cohorts.
Well said, you guys. That was great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Devin. Was there another one? Or was that it? All right, with the silence, I'm gonna just say thank you all so much. Devin just put the DSA sign up list in the chat. Our emails are in the chat. Please reach out. We are so happy to help you through whatever you need to do, or whatever you need to get to zero over time. Thank you, Marcos and Ida and Amy and Star and Carl and everyone at Green Technology. We appreciate all of you so much. Hopefully we'll see you in person next year. We could sure use some Pasadena time. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley. Bye-bye.